Hello and welcome to March's Her Story. Today we're going to be hearing from Lowry Sanger. She was obviously Lowry Davis before Christmas when she got married. What a lovely couple they are. We want to wish them huge congratulations, and maybe she might share when she's talking today a little bit about what married life is like for her right now. But also just want to mention that on the 1st of April, I know it's April Fool's Day, but she's no fool, it'll be Angela Clark who is sharing her journey into faith with us. I just want to say right now, I know that we're starting to come out of lockdown, but a lot of us are feeling, really weary, and there's a lot going on with health issues through people in the family, etc. And I just wanted to say to you that you can find me on Facebook, Karen Bartlett, or you can find me on Instagram or through Riverside Church. I'd love to pray with you if you need some help and some prayer right now. I know that I have a vain streak, and just to say that this morning I looked in the mirror and I didn't think to say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all, because I know myself what the answer is. And I just think we need to maintain a sense of humour, be real with each other, be vulnerable with someone you can trust so that you can get things off your chest. Sometimes you might just want to talk about something that is bothering you, so please get in touch either with me or with a friend of yours. If you don't feel that you've got any friends, that's fine as well. Please get in touch with us. We're here to be your friend. So please enjoy Lowry, and I will see you to do my intro for the 1st of April. So God bless. Take care.
Hi, I'm Lowry, for those of you that don't know. And Karen approached me asking me whether I would do her story, and she's asked me if I would do March, which I thought, that would be fantastic. March, same month as my birthday, and I also think it's a month of kind of fresh starts, new beginnings. And actually, I feel like that's quite an important and symbolic thing that God's really done in my life. So here I am. Now, I had a bit of a weird couple of weeks. I fell over on Valentine's Day, really romantic, and I've hurt my arm and my foot. So at the moment, my lockdown look is going strong because I can't really do much of my hair at the moment whilst my hand's in a cast. So apologies. I've tried to do my face as best I can, so at least I look presentable for now. So I don't know where to start really. So I grew up in Wales, had a really loving home, went to church, grew up in a church home, was part of Sunday school, youth group, did all of that. And, it was, I always knew who God was and Jesus was, and I prayed and, remember all the old worship songs, and went to Soul Survivor and stuff like that. And it wasn't really until kind of I was in my teenage years that I started to really kind of look for who God was, and I encountered him really in a big way when I was in Soul Survivor at 14. I was praying about the direction of my life. It was just, I think, between year 10 and year 11, and I was praying for direction with my life, and God said to me, use your voice. And I really heard him clearly say, use your voice. Now, I don't confess to kind of hear God's voice or voices at all, but God's voice, particularly clearly, I tend to kind of feel like a sense of presence. And but I just remember that really, really clearly. It wasn't really that helpful as a direction, but it's kind of stayed with me since. And so it was kind of, I would say, a couple of years after that, just before I went to university, things had changed at home. Mum and dad went through quite a difficult period, and I would say it affected me quite significantly in that I had gone to university just after, and things had changed at home. and I wasn't there, and I felt a real sense of anger. I was just cross because my life was different, and I think before that, but I just really felt this sense of like kind of imposter syndrome where I wasn't allowed to go to church because I didn't feel like I was worthy to be there. I wasn't Jesus enough to be at church. I just felt I was kind of, there to make up the numbers, or there because I didn't have a better option on a Sunday, which was awful really, because I knew that I still prayed all the time, kind of about situations, and I don't know, I just felt really distant from all of it, and everything that I'd kind of put my belief in just was a bit different. Everything had changed, and I was carrying around this anger with me, which I think rather than turning outwards, I probably turned inwards, and that manifested itself in kind of really awful relationships that I had, just because I feel like probably I didn't think I deserved anyone better, or I just kind of accepted people's treatment of me. Not to say I didn't kind of push against it, but I just thought, well, that's just kind of how it is, which is really sad to think of it. But I then met somebody, and there were some really tragic circumstances surrounding the start of our relationship. His mum passed away kind of a couple of months into our relationship, and that threw everything into a kilter really. And we bought a house, and we got a dog, and we moved in together, and as far as I was concerned, we were kind of starting our life together, and that was how it was. And I wouldn't say I was a regular churchgoer, but I was part of the church as I was part of the youth group. I was there nearly every week. We had 2 youth groups at that point, younger and an older one, and I was there kind of just having fun really with the kids, and I'd sometimes go on a Sunday too. But I still had this sense of like unworthiness, if that's even a thing, that I just was not spiritual enough. I didn't pray enough, I didn't read my Bible enough, I didn't measure up basically. And I remember it was quite difficult. I'm a teacher, or I was a teacher. I'm now a lead tutor, which is kind of like a head of year at sixth form college. So my job looks a little bit different now, but at the time I was a teacher, and I was a head of department and in charge of GCSEs, and I teach English too, so it's quite a stressful role in school. So life was really getting on top of me, and then I found out that the partner had betrayed me really, and it felt like someone had just kind of pulled the plug, and everything that I knew was just disappearing, and I was working so hard to try and keep everything together. And I remember, obviously I was praying into it, and I know that my mum and my family were praying for me too, and people at the church were as well. And I remember one day just feeling that presence again, that sense of just, and I remember clearly God saying, just let this go. And it was really hard because we separated, obviously, we sold the house, and it was like everything that I had planned, everything that I had worked for almost, was gone. And it was really tough because I was kind of my late 20s, 26 I think, and I just thought, that's it. What now? What now? And I just was in a real mess. I moved, so before I moved back home, I was still attending youth group, and we attended the Limitless Oxygen conference over in Northampton. And I remember praying into this and saying, God, if this is what's meant to happen, if this, the only thing I really had left was my job, if this is what I'm supposed to do, what now? What is this? Basically, I just didn't know what to do. And I remember vividly him saying, you need to lift your face and you need to follow me. You need to lift your head and you need to follow me. And it just completely blew my mind, because I thought, why is he talking to me? Why is he bothered about the fact that I'm asking for his help? And so that was it really. I went home and I found my Bible from when I was a teenager, and inside I found a note that I'd written to myself in Soul Survivor that first time when I'd heard God say, and it said in there, I'd written this to myself at 15, you don't need anything, you don't need relationships to make you happy, just put your eyes on God and follow him, which is way freaky. And I remember just being like completely bowled over and in awe, and I didn't sleep that night. And then I got to church the next day, and Adam and Bridget, our mum and Sarah Pratt, had been there with me, and something I don't know, switched, and I just felt completely like, church, I am meant to be here. God wants me here. So I guess from that point, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to sit and pretend that I became more Jesus-y. I'm not going to pretend that I all of a sudden just nailed it and was like super, super spiritual, because that wouldn't be the truth. But I always feel now that sense that I felt before, when my life was just completely out of control, and I didn't have any kind of idea what was going to happen, which is hard for me, because I'm quite I like to know how things are going to turn out. I'm okay with change, I'm okay with stuff happening that I'm not prepared for, but I prefer to kind of know how things are going to pan out. I like to have thought stuff ahead before things happen. So for me, that sense of not having to worry about what was going to happen, that I just said, okay, God, this is on you. And so quite a few different things happened over a period of time. So I was praying for somewhere to live. I was going to move back home anyway for a kind of short period of time to kind of, gather my thoughts and then decide what I was going to do, where I was going to live from that point. And I remember praying into it, and then I didn't know this, but my mum and my dad had a conversation with my granddad, who lives in Wales, about potentially buying a buy-to-let property in around kind of local area. This had happened kind of weeks or months before, and he said no, he didn't want to do that he didn't want to buy one local to mum and dad. He'd rather buy one local to him, because it meant that he could keep an eye on it. And literally at church, I was praying down the front, just kind of asking again, please God, whatever's next, have your hand on it. And my dad got a phone call from my granddad to say he changed his mind and that he was going to buy a property in Kidderminster, and he wanted me to rent it. So that was a big kind of bam, with God's hand right in it. And then I would say a couple of weeks later, I'd started kind of venturing out into the dating world again, which was a whole other thing. That I'd met this boy called Johnny, and we'd talked. So we met online. We talked online on an app for a while, and then that September, and I really prayed into kind of dates like this. So a coffee date I'd pray into, and I'd kind of try and see whether this was the right move. And I remember we met at a coffee shop, and we were just kind of talking, get to know you kind of thing. And he said, what do I need to know? And I said, well, the first thing you need to know is that I'm a Christian, and I hope you're okay with that. And he laughed and he said, yeah, that's fine, because I'm Catholic. So I said, okay, well, that's good. and then I don't know, I just felt such a sense of peace, and it just felt so right that we kind of carried on dating. And he lived at home whilst he was saving for a house, and I was living at home. And then we just had the best time and we got engaged last February. We got married in December, bought our first house last year, and it's just been a complete whirlwind. And I just know that God has had his hand in so much of what's happened since. And I'm not going to pretend it's been easy, because it hasn't. Last year was awful, and stressful for everybody, and it really was. But I honestly felt like God was there. And I've changed jobs twice. I went to a different school to see if I wasn't happy, and I just thought, well, if everything's changing, I might as well just go for it and make a bold move. So I did. I quit my job. I didn't have a job to go to. Prayed into that, and God found me a position in a school in Wolverhampton, where it was a tough school, really tough. The kids were super difficult, but I kind of like working with difficult kids, so that was fine. But it just showed me that I needed to take a step back and do something different. I was a teacher there first part-time, and then I got made head of department, and we had our first Ofsted 3 months into my new role, which that was exciting. And just the level of stress and the level of kind of I don't know what the word is, kind of cost really it was having on my time and on my health and on the way that I felt about things. I just knew God saying, no, this is enough, this is it, look at this. So a job came up at a sixth form college, which Mum works at, and it sounds like I just kind of was like, oh, Mum, get me a job. That wasn't how it was. It was a really difficult decision to make, because it was a completely different role, no more teaching, but I would be safeguarding students and young people and working with really, really vulnerable young people, which all throughout my career, somehow students like that always ended up in my class. They would either be moved to me because their behaviour was so difficult that other teachers struggled with them, or they would just find their way into my class. And I've started to realise that actually this imposter syndrome that I felt, where I'm like, oh, God doesn't have any big plans for me. I'm not a preacher, I'm not this, I'm not that. I know what his plans are for me. He puts these young people in front of me, and it's my job to love them no matter what. And that's been tough at times, but I know that that's what's important for me. So I think I still, in a sense, have that feeling of kind of, oh, I'm not disciplined with reading the Bible. I'm not very good at that. But I always feel that sense of connection to God through worship, through music, through my connection with people, whether that's in the church or actually outside of church. And I always feel a great sense of kind of that what I'm supposed to be doing for God is serving people, is caring, is being that like voice in a sense for those who, for whatever reason, haven't really got people to speak for them or people to stand up for them. I really do think that's something that God's put on my heart. So it's been quite a whirlwind, and God has really kind of gone in and just messed it all up. But in doing that, the things that he broke and shut the door on was so important, because without that I wouldn't be where I am now. Without that kind of distress and that change and that hurt, I wouldn't have this fresh start. I wouldn't have this, loving home, this kind of beautiful relationship. The anger that I was carrying around with me quite a lot, that isn't there. I've managed to, pray through quite a lot of it, but also to find a way to find peace with a lot of the things I was feeling about myself, and a lot of things I was feeling about other people that have kind of hurt me. And I do really feel like without God's hand in all of that without learning to completely trust God, which I'm still rubbish at sometimes. If things start to go, the wedding last year, every single time we put a plan in place, the legislation changed, how many people were allowed. At one point we had just the church booked and the dress bought and pretty much nothing else. There was no catering, there was a venue, sorry, but that was shut. Everything was shut. We didn't have catering, we didn't have anything, and I really had to trust that it was going to come through. And it was really hard. That was a real test, because it was like, we decided we wanted to get married in a church. We decided we wanted who we wanted. We really thought about it. We just thought, oh, we're just going to go for it, and we couldn't. But in a way, it was a blessing in disguise. And there were so many people we wanted there, but actually this tiny wedding, there were 14 people there, was just so beautiful. And it meant that it was just about us getting married, and it was just about kind of our future together, that it really didn't matter. So whatever God takes away, he replaces with something kind of tenfold better, so much better. And I just think that without all that hurt and disruption, actually I wouldn't rely on God as much. I would still be angry with everybody. I would still be angry with myself. And I just feel like it's been such a learning curve for me. And I don't think as as people, as humans, we're totally flawed. And I think coming to accept that is actually the most important part of being a Christian, is that that you are completely flawed, and without God's power and strength and mercy and love and peace, you just can't. You don't have time to give people grace. You don't want to be nice to people that hurt you. You don't want to kind of accept things and just kind of trust in God you just don't. Without that, you can't do it. So it's really, really shaped me, made me who I am. And yeah, I really do feel blessed, even though, you know, current circumstances haven't been easy for anybody. But I would say that whatever you're going through, God is there with you. Even if you don't hear his voice, like there were points where I just wasn't sure he was there anymore, and I had to really kind of go, no, 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 this is fine, this is fine. He is definitely still there. I had to just trust that he was, and he was, he and you know, completely was. So I think if you take anything from my story, I think it's that there God is like the king of fresh starts. I mean, he was dead, he rose again 3 days later. If that's not a fresh start, I don't know what is. So if he can do that for himself, and if he can find it in his heart to forgive those that put him there, I think, you know, he can do anything. And if he's not going to just leave you, he's not going to abandon you, because he just doesn't. And it feels like that sometimes. It feels like, you know, you think, why is he going to be interested in me? What have I got to offer? But you've always got something to offer. You're, you know, you're a mother, you're a friend, you're a cousin, you're an auntie, you're a, you know, sister, a colleague, whatever kind of walk of life you're part of. God is going to come into that and use that to, you know, even if it's just to turn up on your friend's doorstep on Valentine's Day with a card because you know they're going through a rough time. That's, it doesn't mean much to you. You just think, oh, I'm just going to do that. But to them, that shows them that you love them. It shows them that you're thinking about them. And I do really think that at the moment, particularly, that is what God is placing people for. So I want you to feel encouraged that if you feel like, oh, you know, I'm just, God's not interested in me, I'm just kind of one of the crowd, that's not true. He's got plans. He's got like abundant blessings to pour onto you. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it.